然后的话你重写了之后的话呢，基本上就是有没有那个你有没有就是说在电脑上打出来啊那种？
对，打出来了。
好，那你打出来了的话，就等一会儿你可以把你打出来的那个答案发给我一下。那我们现在就先顺一遍啊，就是按照你写的，然后的话我们顺一遍。
行。
好，那我就从第一个就是从开始就开始念了哈。
好嘞。
看一下现在是几点，然后整个是9:53，反正大概等我们俩顺完了就可以去把其他组结束了。好的，那我就现在先开始念啊。我们俩现在先演练一遍，然后就是说等着正式的，就是我们给大家弄的时候，就是我们俩录的，我们俩就会录一个音，然后这个音就会传到 Moodle 上去。好的，好的，那么就说Hi, is that Jean speaking?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, my name is Helen, and we have a phone interview scheduled today. How are you going?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, thank you. So firstly, thank you for your participation. I will be asking you some questions and mainly about your cultural identity and discuss with you settlement issues you have encountered due to cultural difference. Please let me know if you feel any question inappropriate or privy. Please also feel free to skip that question or terminate this interview altogether at any stage. Is that all right for you?
All right, no problem.
Also, I would like to advise you that we will keep you anonymous and our conversation is confidential. The information will only be used or shared for research purposes with your consent. Do you have any concerns?
No.
Shall we start now?
Okay.
Okay, good. So the first question is about your identity. How will you classify yourself regarding cultural groups? Say Aboriginals or Torres Strait Islander, African, Asian, European heritage, or mixed?
I am Asian.
Yeah, okay. So what is your country of origin?
I come from China.
Oh, good. So can you please briefly explain the history of China, like when it started, what dynasties it has been through, or anything you feel interesting?
Chinese culture is said to have begun with Yellow Emperor, and it is the only culture in the world to have the continuous record history of 5,000 years.
对，那个是 recorded history.
Recorded history.
Oh yeah, good. I think I heard about that. Four great inventions in ancient China as well, such as paper making, printing, gunpowder, and what's the last one?
Compass.
Oh yeah, that is one. Okay, so let's move to the next topic. Would you mind talking a bit about your individual experience of migration?
No.
Yeah, good, thank you. So which year did you arrive in Australia?
I arrived in Australia last September.
Last September, okay, not long ago. So for what reason did you leave your country? Work, study, travel, or marriage?
I came to Australia as a permanent residency, mainly for the education of my children. On the other hand, I was under too much pressure when I worked in China. I often work overload, so I don't even have time to have time with.
这个不用回答这么长，就到你的 children 就完了。
OK， 到 children 就行了。
对，你要把 work 的话，那你后面有没有说到是中澳文化的不同？你谈到工作超时工作。
对，也说了一点，那我就删掉，
把这个地方删掉就行了。
删掉了。OK，no problem。
你一开始说就是来澳洲是 PR 的，那句英文是怎么说
的？我知道我说错。I came to Australia as a permanent resident.
这样就对了。对，好的。那我就问下一句。OK。So I believe when you first arrived, there might be some sort of culture shock or other socioeconomic difficulties, such as language barrier or unfamiliarity of how health system works. Are you happy to tell us some of your settlement issues?
Yes, of course. Let me talk about when I first arrived. I had a lot of trouble due to language barriers. I studied in Europe for 3 years before, So I thought my English was okay, but when I came to Australia, I found they speak so fast, and I was not familiar with their accent, and even very easy words I cannot get it. But after almost 1 year, the situation is getting better now.
Okay, yeah. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, I think I have experienced the same thing as you because I came here as a migrant as well. Okay, so what is your present settlement situation? Are you a citizen already, or you are still a permanent resident?
I'm still PR.
Oh, okay, yeah, good. So let me introduce you to the social identity theory. This theory believes that we all have a sense of who we are based on our group memberships, be it cultural, social class, family, or football team. Do you still have current connection to your culture or cultural community?
Yeah, I have family relatives and some friends here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a very good connection. So, what are the current practices that maintain and reinforce your cultural identity? Like, say, your friends and relatives, do they help with maintaining and reinforcing the identity?
Yeah, we keep in touch through WeChat, and also when we have time, we have dinner together and cooking some Chinese food together.
Okay, yeah, good. Yeah, you must enjoy it. Yes. So, have you ever heard the term collectivist culture and individualist culture?
Yeah, I have heard.
Okay, yeah. So we can see that collectivist culture is more often in Asia and Arabic countries, while individualist culture in Australia, USA, or Western Europe. So which culture will you say you belong to? Can you give us an example to explain your connection to that culture?
I would say I largely belong to collectivist culture. For example, my husband and I live with my parents-in-law, and we can take care of the parents, and the parents also can help us take care of the children. This is very common for Chinese families. But I know,
Okay. Hmm.
but I know it is very difficult to imagine in Australia.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah. Okay. Link back to the last question. How involved are you regarding decision making in or for your family? For example, marriage, buying property, studying abroad. Do you follow individualist or independent framework or collectivist interdependent framework? Or maybe it's pretty much mixed for you in regards to decision making?
Regarding the decision making, in my family, I found we follow the individualistic framework. I was born in a very well-educated family. My parents are very open-minded. They always respect the decision I made, such as study abroad. I immigrate to Australia. They all give great support.
Yeah. So it's very interesting to know that you believe you belong more to the collectivist culture, but for decision making, so it's pretty much a very independent decision making process for you, right? Like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, good. Do you know anything about system theory?
Not much.
That's all right. So I'll just briefly explain that to you. So this theory focuses on pattern recognition rather than deductive reasoning and explains individual behavior within the context of larger systems such as marriage, family, or community. So as an active member of the Chinese community, how will you say about the extent of assimilation and acculturation into Australian culture?
Sorry, I don't get that. I don't quite understand the jargon assimilation and the acculturation. Could you
Oh,
further explain it?
okay, sorry about that. So of course, yeah, assimilation is a form of acculturation. I'll give you an example if that's easier for you. An Indian family who moved to Melbourne will keep their culture alive through food, language, and friendship circles, but might also go to the footy and support an AFL team.
Oh, yeah, of course. We also have pretty assimilated with Australian and to some extent. Although we still mainly eat Chinese food and watch Chinese TV program, we don't work over over time and overload right now. Like Australians, we spend more time with families after work and at weekend to relax. I think it is kind of assimilation.
Yes, yes。你这个第一句英语怎么说的？第一句。
这句就是we also pretty assimilated with Australian to some extent.
好像的话呢，首先这个 pretty 和 to some extent 这两句不能一起，然后这个话也不是说 assimilated to 什么东西，好像这个句的英文应该造成说是 I think we assimilated into Australian culture.
Assimilated
或者说是 I think to some extent we have assimilated into Australian culture. 或者说是I think we pretty much have assimilated into Australian culture. 所以说一定程度上还是融入很大。这个东西好像的话呢，就是这个 assimilated into something into the culture， 还或者说 into the team。
好的，我也没用过这个词儿，就瞎写的。
没关系。然后的话，行。那我们就继续。Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Then you can enjoy the Australian culture more. OK， 这里看马上看问题。好，等一会儿啊。It goes without saying that the Chinese culture is quite different from its Australian counterpart. So what difference have you perceived? Can you give me an example from your personal experience?
Yeah, there are many cultural differences between Chinese and Australian. For example, when it comes to festival or birthday, we always send gift at high prices because Chinese people may think the price of the gift itself is important. But in Australia, we often get some very cheap gifts, maybe just $2 or $3, but with very beautiful package or very warm cards. And when we accept the gifts, Chinese often say no to show welcoming, but Australian people, they often say thank you and I love it and accept the gift directly. I think that is quite different.
Yeah, I agree with you. 最后这一节你怎么说的？就是关于 gift 那块儿。
Okay, when we accept the gifts, when Chinese may we say no to show welcoming, but
这 show welcoming 是什么意思呢？
我也不知道，我就是
you accept. So 这个最好改成说so for Chinese, when we are given the gift, when we are presented with the gift, we often say no, but actually we mean thank you for your gift. Yeah, but as a humble gesture, we need to decline the gift first, and then the other party will insist offering that gift, and then we take it. That's the Chinese culture. But for Australians, they are more open-handed, like they are more honest and open. So if they want that gift, if they like that gift, they will just happily take it and say thank you. 这样子就好像是更好的，这个 that's cultural difference。就是说，你说一下，就是中国人嘴上说不，但是心里是很想要的。然后呢，必须是双方退让一番之后。
这个 for Chinese, when we are given the gift, we often say no, but 后边怎么说
？But 你要说 we often say no, but deep inside we want that gift. 但是的话，我们是想要那个 but deep inside we want that gift. However, as a routine 或者说是 however for a humble gesture, humble 就会表示谦虚嘛 humble， 然后或者说 as a routine 就像是那个或者说 as a social ritual 的话呢，就是社交的一个礼仪。So the other party will insist to offer us the gift, and then we will take it.
这个我没太懂，就是我自己也没这么说过。 as a routine.
as a social ritual。等会儿我要把这个 chat 打开。你现在的话，我现在的话 to everyone， 我现在给你弄发一个 chat。So as Chinese, when we are given a gift, we usually say no at first, but inside.
对，这句我写完了，这句我写完，就是后边。
Like to decline the first and to offer the gift, and then we can
However, as a social ritual, it is polite to decline the part first, and the other party insists to offer the gift. And then we can take it and say thank you.
你能看到我给你打的字吗？
能，我都。
这一块这个 cultural difference， 要不然你就只谈这一点就行了，就只谈给礼物这一点，前面的那些你就不用谈了，因为的话说的太多，这个就太长了，就把这个就直接说成礼物这一点就可以了。
好的。
好的，那我就继续下一个问题。OK。So, in your knowledge, what do you think the difference lies between the legal and justice system in China and Australia?
I don't know much about that. I haven't had any trouble with police or count.
那个叫 court.
Oh, court.
With police or court.
Court.
法庭呢？
哎，对 ，court.
All right. So I think that's a good thing. But do you know anything about the intervention order?
Yes, I knew through the diploma of interpreting course, and I think I can answer your question now.
那你要 answer 啊？
什么呀？
我问你这个 what do you think the difference lies？ 那 you can answer my question， 那这 difference 是什么
？For example， 我这儿没准备，那我就是这儿读错了是吧？
你没有读错呀。I think I can answer your question now。那你接下来要连着你的 answer 啊，不是在这儿就完了呀？
那我就应该说我不知道是吧？
不是啊，那个我都提示你 intervention order 了，你说你在 diploma 课上学过 intervention order， 那你怎么还会说不知道呢
？Intervention order。哎呀，这个我没学过呀。老师，
那我昨天不是讲过了吗？我说这个在中国夫妻打架，邻居来劝一下就行了，觉得没有什么大不了。但是在澳大利亚的话，家庭暴力是要上法庭的，警察是会来干预的。
就是这里要说这个是吧？
对呀，那你把这个弄到哪里去了
？Okay, I think, in China, when the couples they fight, we just deal with it by ourselves. But in Australia, it often goes to the court to.
那你跟这 intervention order 有什么关系？
我
打出来，你把我打的抄一下吧。
好的，好的。还是理解的不到位。哦，我以为这个就是它是这个法律方面的干预是吧？
嗯。
And if a couple have a fight, usually their parents or neighbor will just jump as a mediator. I believe this is a domestic issue. Attention in Australia. However, family violence treated very seriously in Australia. The offender will be served as an intervention order if the affected family member reports the violence to the police. Okay. Intervention order. Okay.
你把这一节抄上去。
Also, the offender will attend the court to accept the contest the order. Contest the order. 这啥意思？Also,
不同意。
Contest the order.
就是叫提出异议、反驳。
对，竞争、奋斗、争辩。OK。To accept contest.
你把这个抄到你的那个上面去。
弄完了。那
我们现在问11题。
好的。
Now let's move to labeling theory, which claim that you live up to the labels attached to yourself. If you think you are a winner, even if you are not, you will act and think like a winner until you eventually become one. Social class plays a very important role in labeling. Race is also a factor. So have you ever experienced any tensions in mainstream society which were created by the cultural label attached to you? Considering the current COVID crisis, mask wearing can be a good point of departure.
Yes, much of this year was like first time the COVID outbreak in Australia. We were more cautious. We wear masks to prevent the virus and protect ourselves. But many Australians don't do that and don't understand that. They even think Asians are all infected. I still remember the way people were looking at me like a monster or something. But now people know why we wear masks and what we did was right.
你这个弄的可以，但是你这个语法都不太对。你把你这一堆就是贴到我的这个 chat 这一块贴出来，我给你改一下这个。到 message。OK， 这个地方的话呢，说 on March this year， 它不是 on March， 它是 in March。OK。March this year 也不用说 of this year，in March， 或者说你就说是 this March 就完事儿了，这个就叫今年赛 this March。This March 对。然后的话呢是 when COVID first broke out。OK。When COVID first broke out in Australia， 然后的话呢，后面就可以，但是这些全部要用过去式，这个 wear 要搞成 wore，W-O-R-E， 要搞成它的过去式。We wore mask， 或者说 we put on mask， 可能对你来讲更容易。对。Prevent the virus and protect ourselves， 这个是没错的。But many Australians, but 这个地方最好说 but most Australians didn't do that， 这都是过去式 ，didn't do that。Neither did they understand. Neither did they understand that. They even thought Asians were all infected. They even thought were， 这都是过去式。然后后面的话就是 I still remember the way they looked at me. They looked at me like I am a monster， 或者说 like I was a monster。这个就是话是But now people know why we， 这个后面就对了。But now people know why we wear mask and what we did was right。 这个后面的这个人是可以的。好的，那么的话我们就到 question 12了。
Even 那儿怎么说 ？Even thought they
在哪儿有 even？
就是and
even thought Asians were all infected。
OK 知道了。
Even thought were。
明白。
好的，那我们的话看12题。Yeah, I think that's a very strong point. Okay, I guess this question is a continuation of what we discussed last. Have you ever encountered cultural prejudices, tensions, discrimination in any form or shape since arriving in Australia? Would you mind sharing your story?
Yeah, although we have just come to Australia, but also encounter some discrimination. My husband is a drum teacher. He teaches children to learn drums at home. And because my husband's English not very good, our target customer is just a Chinese. So we simply made a small board laying outside of our house and signing teaching drum in Chinese. But one day a woman in her 40s or 50s come to our house and pointing our board, shouting very angrily, "What is this? Why you are writing in English? Go back to China." And she also said a lot of bad words to us. I really don't understand that could happen.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yes, so I think you have already rose above it now. 那个你就说 yes, it has passed.
Oh.
I think you have already. 你把这个也贴出来，你这个语法都是错的。
好吧，这是太差了。
Is above it. Rise above it. 好的，你贴出来了是吗？等一会儿我看一下啊。看一下从哪开始 ？Okay. Yes, although we have just come to Australia, but also encountered some discrimination. 你说 yes, although we are in Australia for not long. 我们在澳大利亚 we live in Australia for not long, but we already have encountered some discrimination. We have, although we live in Australia not long, but we have already encountered some discrimination. 这个改成这个。My husband is a drum teacher, 然后逗号 teaching children 就可以了。或者说是 training children 什么都可以 teaching children 然后就可以，或者不是，要不然改成这样 My husband is a drum teacher for children 就完事了。然后的话呢because his English is not very good, so our target students are just Chinese students are. So 你这个 teaching 或者是说是就是说my 后面这个比方说 my husband is a drum teacher for children and he works at home, works from home。然后的话呢，就是说那个 he works from home， 就在家里工作，后面把这个后面的你那个东西就可以加上。然后后面的话呢 ，so we simply made a small board laid outside our house。你可以说 so we simply put a small board on outside our house on the wall。然后的话后面又写成 writing， 这个 board 是 writing。Teaching drum in Chinese， 这个后面就对了。But one day, a woman in her 40 to 50， 这个叫做 came by our house， 然后的话呢，pointed to our board and shouted very angrily. So what is this? Why don't you write in English? Go back to China. 这个后面都没有。And she also sweared a lot. SWEAR 就是诅咒咒骂 ，swear a lot 就是骂人。然后的话呢，你这个后面说 I really don't understand that could happen， 这个的话应该改成是 I never expected that could happen to us。我从来没有想到过这种事情会发生，是 I never expected。你记完了吗？好的。那我们就再念下一题。好 ，So if you can start over, what changes you would like to make about your experience in Australia?
I think if I can start over, I will still choose the present way of life. And don't feel any bad about present. And I haven't thought about other ways of living. Everything goes well. After all, there's no way back, and we won't stop.
你把这个打出来我看看。
因为我想了半天，实在不知道该说啥。老师辛苦了，好像每个都得改。
I think even I can start over， 你就说 even I can start over, I will still choose the present way of life， 这样的话就可以了。然后说 because I don't feel any bad about my current situation and I have never thought about other ways of living， 这样的话就可以了。这个逻辑你就是说，就算我可以重来，我也仍然选择现在的生活，因为我觉得现在生活没有什么不好啊。然后的话呢，后面的话就是说是 everything is going well， 这个可以的。然后说是 after all there is no way back， 这样的话就可以了。We can only keep going。After all there is no way back, we can only keep going。 你这个东西写出来没什么逻辑，这东西。
对，
把这个用的这逻辑很混乱的。
对。
好的，那这个的话我们就结束说 ，This is the end of our interview. Thank you for your time. 那你也说是 You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Just would like to let you know your answers are highly valued because they will help us identify cultural gaps which hinder new migrants from integrating into the Australian society, especially those sharing the same cultural backgrounds as you. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, thank you.
好的，那我们就结束了。
那老师，我给您发过去哈。
好的，那我回到这个组里面去，然后我们就关到组里好了。 是不是该回来的都回来了？那有些同学名字是挂在上面，但是讨论组就不知道你在哪儿了。好的，那么的话呢，现在的话呢，就是由我和金马先给大家弄一个，然后的话呢，大家可以听一下我们的一个表演。等一会儿的话，就是说，金马同学，你这个麦克也开的吗？
哦，开了。
等一会儿我数3、2、1，然后的话呢，我们就可以正式开始了啊。等一会儿啊。OK， 3、2、1。Hi, is that Jean speaking?
Yes, it is.
My name is Helen, and we have a phone interview scheduled today. How are you going?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, firstly, thank you for your participation. I will ask you some questions, mainly about your cultural identity, and discuss with you settlement issues you have encountered due to cultural difference. Please let me know if you feel any question inappropriate or privy. Please also feel free to skip that question or terminate this interview altogether at any stage. Is that all right for you?
No problem.
Also, I would like to advise you that we will keep you anonymous and our conversation is totally confidential. Your information will only be used or shared for research purposes with your consent. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
No, thank you.
Shall we start now?
Okay.
Okay, good. So the first question is about your identity. How will you classify yourself regarding cultural groups? Say Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, African, Asian, European heritage, or mixed?
I am Asian.
Okay, so what is your country of origin then?
I come from China.
Oh, great. So can you please briefly explain the history of China, like when it started, what dynasties it has been through, or anything you think that is interesting to discuss?
Well, Chinese culture is said to have begun with Yellow Emperor, and it is the only culture in the world to have a continuous recorded history of 5,000 years.
Yes, I know there are those 4 great inventions in ancient China, such as paper making, printing, gunpowder, and
Compass.
Yes, compass. Okay, let's move to the next topic. Would you mind talking a bit about your individual experience of migration?
No.
Okay, which year did you arrive in Australia?
I arrived Australia last September.
Not long ago, I can see that. Okay, for what reasons did you leave your country? Work, study, travel, or marriage?
I come to Australia as a permanent resident, mainly for my children's education.
Okay, so I believe when you first arrived, there might be some sort of culture shock or other socioeconomic difficulties, such as language barrier or unfamiliarity of how the healthcare system works. Are you happy to tell us some of your settlement issues?
Yeah, of course. Let me talk about when I first arrived. I had a lot of trouble due to language barriers. I studied in Europe for 3 years before, so I thought my English was okay. But when I first came to Australia, I found they speak so fast, and it was very difficult to understand very easy words. I don't used to their accents. But after almost 1 year, the situation is getting better now.
Oh yeah, it's good to hear that life becomes much easier for you. So what is your present settlement situation? Are you still a permanent resident or you have already got your citizenship?
I'm still a PR.
Okay, so now let me introduce to you the social identity theory. This theory believes that we all have a sense of who we are based on our group memberships, be it culture, social class, family, or football team. Do you still have current connection to your culture or cultural community?
Yeah, I have family relatives and have some friends here.
Oh yeah, it's always good to have families and friends around. So what are the current practices that maintain and reinforce your cultural identity?
We keep contact through WeChat, and also when we have time, we have dinner together and we will cook some Chinese food together.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good. I like Chinese food as well. Then have you ever heard the term collectivist culture and individualist culture?
Yes, I have heard.
Yeah. Okay, collectivist culture is more often seen in Asian and Arabic countries, while individualist culture in Australia, the USA, and Western Europe. Since you are a migrant from China but now living in Australia, which culture will you say you belong to? Can you give us an example to explain your connection to it?
I would say I largely belong to collectivistic culture. For example, my husband and I live with my parents-in-law, and we can take care of the parents, and the parents can also help us take care of the children. This is very common for Chinese families. But I know it is very difficult to imagine in Australia.
Yes, you are definitely right. Link back to the last question. How involved are you regarding decision making in or for your family? For example, marriage, buying properties, studying abroad, and so on. Do you follow individualist, independent framework or collectivist, interdependent framework? Or maybe it is pretty much mixed for you?
Regarding the decision making in my family, I found we follow the individualistic framework. I was born in a well-educated family, and my parents are very open-minded. They always respect the decision I have made, such as study abroad, and now I immigrant to Australia. They all give great support.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting to find out that you feel you more belong to the collectivist culture, but in regards to decision making, it's very, very individual in your family, right?
Yes.
Okay, so do you know anything about systems theory?
Nope, not much.
That's all right. So this theory focuses on pattern recognition rather than deductive reasoning and explains individual behavior within the context of larger systems such as marriage, family, and community. As an active member of the Chinese community, how will you say about the extent of assimilation and acculturation into Australian culture?
Sorry, I don't get that. I don't quite understand the dragon assimilation or acculturation. Could
Oh,
you further explain it?
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yes, assimilation is a form of acculturation. I will give you an example if that's easier for you. Say, an Indian family who moved to Melbourne will keep their culture alive through food, language, and friendship circles, but might also go to the footy and support an AFL team.
Oh, yeah, of course, to some extent, we are also assimilated into Australian culture. Although we still mainly eat Chinese food and watch Chinese TV program, we don't work overtime right now, like Australians, and we spend more time with family after work, and in the weekend, take time to relax. I think it is kind of assimilation.
Yes, of course. Yes. Yeah, very happy to hear that because the survey shows that people who adapt to the Australian society, called Australian acculturation, have greater personal well-being than those who don't. Okay. It goes without saying that Chinese culture is quite different from its Australian counterpart. So what difference have you perceived? Can you give me an example from your personal experience?
There are many cultural differences between Chinese and Australian. For example, as Chinese, when we are given gift, we usually say no at first, but deeply inside, we really would like to take that gift. However, as a social ritual, it is implied to decline the part first, and the other party insisted to offer the gift, and then we will take it and say thank you. By contrast, for Australians, they are quite open and honest. If they want the gift, they will just take it and happily with a big thank you.
Oh yeah, glad to hear that. Yeah, it's the first time I hear anything about that. Yeah, interesting, interesting. So in your language, in your knowledge, what do you think the difference lies between the legal and justice system in China and Australia?
I don't know much about that. I have never had any trouble with police or court.
I think that's a good thing. So yeah, do you know anything about the intervention order?
Yes, I knew it through the diploma of interpreting course, and I think I can answer your question now. In China, if a couple have a fight, usually their parent or neighbor will just jump in as a mediator. They believe this is a domestic issue. However, family violence is treated very seriously in Australia. The offender will serve with intervention order if the affected family member reports violence to the police. Also, the offender will attend to court to accept or contest the order.
Yeah, I think that's a very good example, and that makes the whole world difference. Okay, now let's move to labeling theory, which claims that you live up to the label attached to yourself. If you think you are a winner, even if you are not, you will act and think like a winner until you eventually become one. Social class plays a very important role in labeling. Race is also a factor. Have you ever experienced any tensions in mainstream society which were created by the cultural label attached to you? Considering the current COVID crisis, mask wearing can be a good point of departure, but feel free to discuss anything you would like to.
Yeah, this March when the COVID first broke out in Australia, we were more cautious. We put on masks to prevent the virus and protect ourselves. But most Australians didn't do that, and neither did they understand that. Even they thought Asians are all infected. I still remember the way someone looking at me like a monster or something. But now people know why we wear masks and what we did was right.
Yeah, I feel for you. So now it's almost like universal mask wearing. I think nobody will look you like think you are very strange. Yeah, I think it's a good thing. So this is a very strong point. I guess this question is a continuation of what we discussed last. Have you ever encountered cultural prejudices, tensions, or discrimination in any form or shape since arriving in Australia? Would you mind sharing your story?
Mm, yes, although we live in Australia not long, but we have already encountered some discrimination. My husband is a drum teacher for children, and he worked from home. Because my husband's English not very good, our targeted students are just Chinese, so we simply put a small board outside our house and writing teaching drum in Chinese. But one day, a woman in her 40 to 50s came by our house and pointing our board, shouted very angrily, saying, "What is this? Why don't you write in English and go back to China?" And she swore a lot. I never expect that could happen to us.
Yeah, that's horrible, isn't it? Yeah, I think you have already reasoned about it now, right?
Yeah, yeah, it has passed.
Yeah, that's good. So if you can start over, what changes you would like to make about your experience in Australia?
If I think if I can start over, I will still choose the present way of life because I don't feel any bad about the present. And I have never thought about the other ways of living. Everything goes well. After all, there's no way back, and we can only keep going.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that attitude. So this is the end of our interview. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Just to let you know, your answers are highly valued because they will help us identify cultural gaps which hinder new migrants from integrating into Australian society, especially those sharing the same cultural backgrounds as you. Anyhow, enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.
好的，我们俩整完了，然后现在的话轮到大家表现了。 然后你们都去玩去了是吧？有人在听吗？
有的。
有的有的。
是是，
我们都听到了。
谈一下感受吧。有没有？
太棒了！
我的妈呀，这说的，来金马同学，感谢感谢。
感谢老师，老师帮助我们。
就是感谢金马同学的配合，然后还得到了其他同学违心的赞美，是吧？
不违心，不违心。
他是这样子，就是说我们两个在做的时候的话呢，就是尽量把它做成一个像真正的 interview 的那种形式，就有一个开场白，然后有一个结尾。但是就是最重要的是，我们就是注重，不是说好像就是念问题，然后一个人回答，然后你又机械的念下一条问题。就是注重就是大家有一个 interaction， 这样就比方说他回答的，然后我就说啊 that's a good example， 或者说 I feel sorry about that， 或者是什么什么东西的，就是对他的回答做出一个 comment， 这样的话好像你们两个人之间就更会有一些互动，然后听起来好像也真的是一个 interview 的那种感觉。以及的话就是说这个问题虽然我都给大家列出来了这个问题，但是在问的时候可能你需要把这个形式啊，还有这个语言呢组织一下，让你这个问题更生动一下，而不是就好像是叫人一听就是照着这一页纸1、2、3、4、5问题怎么写的，你就怎么问，也是根据上一个人，就比方说上一题的回答，然后来看一下你这一题怎么问，可能会就是比较生动或怎样。那行，那我们现在的话，我看看现在几点了啊？然后现在10点44。好的。那我们现在的话呢，就挑这个同学啊，然后的话呢，让你们来演示一下。然后的话呢，我们现在的话呢，就是其他的组都讨论了多少？是不是已经讨论的差不多了？还是你们都没讨论完呢？有没有没讨论完的？那么的话呢，现在的话我就把这个问题的话，我们这个一共有13个问题，然后的话呢，我们分成这个4个组，然后的话就是说我再有一个组，我给你分好问题，等一会儿的话就由你们组就是来问来答这些分好的问题就可以了。好的，然后的孙如意同学在吗？
在的。
你们组的话呢，回答1到3，等一会儿就回答1到3就可以了。好的。
好的。
好的 ，Linda 同学这一组的话呢，等一会儿就回答4、5、6。好，达令同学等一会儿就是7、8、9，你们这一组。
好的。
好的，然后的话，那个佩佩同学的话就是10、11，然后的话呢，佩佩同学这一组是10、11，然后的话 Matt 同学这一组12、13，可以吗？是吧？分到的人都在是吗？
听到了。
好的，好的。那么就有第一个问题，然后的话，这个孙如意同学第一组，你们来问这个第一个问题就好了。
哦，现在开始是吗？
对对对。你问呗。
那我要自我介绍吗？
不用，就是说你觉得怎么舒适你就怎么弄呗，就是或者说你们刚才演练的时候没有我们的那个自我介绍的那个过程，你就是按照你演练的，你有自我介绍也行，直接 jump into the question 的也行。
Hi, my name is Rui, and thank you for your participation in today's interview. Can I know your name?
Sure. My name is Audrey.
Well, next I will ask you some questions, mainly about your cultural identity. So please let me know if any questions makes you feel uncomfortable. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, firstly, it's very simple. How will you how will you classify yourself regarding the cultural groups? Say like Aboriginals, African, Asian, or mixed?
Caucasian or mixed, Aboriginal.
Aboriginals, African, Asian, co cos
Caucasian.
Caucasian or mixed?
Elimination.
Oh, well, so can you tell me what's your countries of origin?
Yeah.
那叫 origin，你这个人怎么读音总是错的？那叫 origin。
对不起，对不起，origin.
嗯，
I come from China.
Oh, China. Oh, good place. Well, can you please briefly explain the history about China? For example, the festivals or something else?
Yeah, as you know, China has a long history, and Chinese culture is said to have begun with the Yellow Emperor, and is the only culture in the world to have a continuous recorded history of 5,000 years. And
你继续。你们这样就属于就直接按照答案来念了嘛？这个只不过是个参考嘛，因为每个组都给答成一样的这种。
Okay, talk about the festivals. I think the biggest festivals is the Chinese New Year. Is the just after the date is a different, and it's the biggest festival. And during this time, family members usually will get together no matter where you are. For example, every year I will come back to China with my kids, and my parents live in Beijing, and my sister lives in Japan. During this special time, we will come to my parents' home and get together and do some special things like take some photos and do some cooking, special cooking, dumplings, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
好的，你们这个组弄的也不错。然后的话，你是马来西亚人，但是就是说是祖籍中国的马来西亚人，是这样子不？
您说的是我吗
？Audrey，
我祖籍北京。
哦，但是那你后来都几岁去的马来西亚？
我没有去过马来西亚，老师。
就是刚才问那个，你不是自己 identify 你自己是 Malaysian 吗？
我说我是 Asian。
我怎么听着马来西亚？然后心想咋回事？这是，对呀，好，那么呢，来 question 4。
这样我问 Linda 同学答。
好的。
Okay.
Would you mind Hi Linda, would you mind talking a bit about your individual experience of migration, reasons for leaving your country,
Yes,
initial
of course.
settlement issues? Yep.
不能够一下子问那么多，这是
OK
真正的 interview， 你一下子问别人4个问题，这个人肯定记不了那么多问题的。
OK， 好的，这样我重新问过一次。Hi Linda, would you mind talking a bit about your individual experience of migration?
Certainly, I'm happy to talk about something. Yes, we moved down to Australia since 2004, together with my hubby and my daughter. Yeah, and we've got a permanent resident already now.
Permanent residency, you go to a permanent residency, 或者说是 we are permanent residents.
Yes, we are the permanent residents now.
Oh, okay, that's good. So what's the reasons of leaving your country?
Initially, we concerned about to give our daughter a better education condition, so we decide to move here to try to find a better education for my daughter.
Oh, okay.
That's the major reason.
Education 不能够用 a 来修饰，你怎么能还说一个教育俩教育呢？ So we moved to Australia so my daughter can receive better education. 然后就 get better education 就完了。So we are trying to look for a good school. 然后
yes.
University 这种的，对。你加的话就变成那个了。好的。 那下
Okay.
So is there any initial settlement issues?
Oh, definitely. It was like something like a cultural shocking for all of us, especially for me and my hubby, and because we were already 30 something when we starting move here, and our background was from mainland of China, and we've got more different concept with Western people, so it's quite hard for us to settle down initially, and we've got different job which was quite different from our previous jobs in China. Well,
Okay.
yeah, well, for my daughter, and also the learning style is very much different here compared with mainland of China. Normally, students in China schools, they were taught to accept and receive the information from the teacher, while here, teacher encourage students to do all those learning by themselves. So it's also quite different. But now it's all of us is improving much better, and I believe we have been adapt a lot of concept with Australian people here.
你不要老说 mainland of China， 那个明明是 mainland China， 不用加什么 of。你说这一堆能挑出100个语法错误，大家平时要自己注意一下自己这个英文到底说的是什么，你每一句最好都好好分析一下。然后好，那下一个问题。
Okay, question 5.
而你
present. Okay. Okay, it's been a long time you migrate here. How is your present settlement situation?
I think we have already getting along better and better with our daily life here. And my daughter has already graduated from MIT a couple of years ago. So smoothly, she has completed all her study. And we settled down pretty well at the moment. We're happy with that.
是也不能说 How is your present settlement situation 子？什么叫 How is such situation 子？你都 situation 子了，还用 is？然后关键是 situation 也不加子，当然说是 What is your present， 不是 How。说 What is your present settlement situation？ 所以的话，你看你说1、2、3、4、5，你播5个词儿就有俩语法错误出来。好，那下面。
Okay, 下面 question 5. Do you still have current connection to your culture or cultural community? If yes, what are the current practices that maintain and reinforce your cultural identity?
Definitely, we still have a lot of connection with our families, both in China side and also here in Australia side. Because my sister-in-law's family was also here, and they came down earlier than we did. So we communicate with each other not only by WeChat, also by frequent talking over the phone. And we catch up normally almost once a month, and have lunch or dinner outside. Yeah, and we also have frequent communication with our family members, our cousins, our parents in China side. Yeah.
那个叫 on， 比方说 on your mother's side, is there any family history of cancer？ 是 on your mother's side， 就是 on your side。对。好，下面。
Okay, that sounds great. Can you explain the participants' connection to
什么叫 Can
collectivist.
you explain the participants connection？ 谁是 participant？
Oh, okay. Okay. Can you explain your connection to collectivist culture and individualist culture?
Yes. Collectivist culture, that I understand that should be a concept which our generation and also our parents' generation, we have them implanted in our blood, I suppose, because we have to concern a lot whenever we talk about family issue, including, like even when we move down here, and we will discuss a lot of family issue, including my daughter's education and her social activity, those type of things, we will involve pretty much. While, the younger generation, like my daughters, she would put a lot of her personal view and thought into her own matters. So I think that might be because she has been educated here in Australia side, start from her teenagers. So she has adapted herself pretty much about that individualistic culture, which is pretty much Western style.
你说的不错，你不要老干点啥都说 in 谁是谁的 side。In Australia, she was educated in Australia's side。这算啥？不就 she was educated in Australia 不就完了吗？不要啥都想加个 side 上去，然后啥都弄个 concern， 说是 we pretty much concerned a lot 什么什么，问什么第一句怎么说的来着？还有呢什么第一个问题也弄个 concern， 那些都不是 concern， 你都得把这个 concern 换成 think a lot 就行了。这不是这么用的。
OK，
好的，来，你们这个组的答案的内容还是不错的，就是语法都是乱七八糟的。来，下一个组 question 7。
我和 Aaron。So Aaron, as you said, your daughter, I think your daughter will pretty much fit in individualistic culture, but do you follow independent framework now, or you still making decision depending on how other people think?
Aaron 同学都没了。
我没开那个。Actually, we make decision together. We make decision together. Still make decision together with my family, but we respect everyone's own ideas. So I think we are kind of some mix together.
Good. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Okay, so have you ever heard about assimilation and acculturation?
I think, yeah.
Do you want me to explain to you a little bit more?
Oh yeah, we are influenced by people we meet and in contact, like friends, a colleague, and we communicate with different culture habits.
这都啥意思
Okay, cool.
然后呢？这就是你说到问题的答案吗？这个问题不是问你如何受澳洲文化的影响，如何自己慢慢的适应了澳洲的文化，以及更多的像一个澳大利亚人这种。那你的答案是啥？
我的答案就是我们是受到了这些影响，然后我们的一些。
你这个答案非常 general， 让人听了之后有50个词儿，但是 doesn't make any sense to anybody。那到底你要说一个什么意思呢
So I take you must start following foodies then.
你这个回答没有回答到这个问题。那你就用中文说一下，你呢受到了澳大利亚的影响，有什么方面的影响？什么是你以前在，比方说你以前在国内是什么消费观呐，什么婚恋观呐，然后什么 work ethics 啊这些的，然后现在在澳大利亚，什么 lifestyle 都发生什么变化？这个是你如何回答这个问题？你的喜好发生了什么变化？
这个
你什么变化都没有吗？
有，都是潜移默化的一些变化。
对呀，那你举个例子给大家听一下嘛。
比如说像如果是说到那个如果说到那些婚恋观的话，就是觉得是可能就是更趋向于一些比较自主的，就像如果是在国内的话，可能大家会催婚呐、或者是这些，但是在这边的话，就是更倾向于就是
There's nothing wrong to be yourself.
那要不然那个什么达利同学，你说一下吧，你受了什么方面的同化？
Well, normally, while I was in China, I normally would have my breakfast, lunch, and dinner separate. But in here, since everyone's doing brunch, so
你能不能不用这个昨天说的这个例子，能不能说点新意的？
好，那就说婚姻观好了。So in China, as soon as you hit 30, everyone
好像也是昨天说过的，能不能整点新的？受影响人数实在是太多了，不要太多。
I barely follow any sports in China. When I came here, AFL was such a big thing.
那 AFL 也是在答案中就说过的，这没有新意吗，同学？我给你举个例子，比方说，我刚来澳洲的时候，看到一家人有爸爸有妈妈领着好几个小孩，我觉得what a happy family。然后的话呢，等我接触的澳洲人多了之后，我才发现，原来他们都是 mixed family， 他们都是二混水家庭。你别看这一男这一女领了5个小孩，可能这5个小孩有仨爸爸。他这个男的已经是第3个爸爸了，就是只有最下面那最后一个孩子才是他的，前2个孩子都是这个女的跟别的人生的，这都已经是2婚、3婚或4婚了。那么的话呢，这个就是说一开始我可能觉得很难以接受，我觉得这种结了好多次婚的，然后这孩子的爸爸都是谁的，我觉得他们都是不正经的人。那么现在的话，我在澳洲生活多年之后，我发现这个情况真是very common, it's too common。然后呢，我就不能觉得人都是不正经的人，我们觉得呢，那就是这个西方人的一个家庭观和中国人的家庭观不太一样，他们觉得合则来，不合则散。然后的话呢，就很容易再重新组建家庭。那么这大家都是 normal people， 而不是什么一些 slut 啊什么东西的。
Shrek可以说well, in China, when we see people, we barely say hi to them. But in here, morning greeting is a common thing to do.
什么叫做 we barely say hi to them？
when we in China, if we saw a stranger on the street, we would never talk to them.
这个例子还是可以的，这样说对，就是说，那你这个的问题的侧重点就是你如何同化到澳洲的文化。那你如果你这个思路是对的，但你如何把它转成回答这个问题？这个就跟大家做 assessment task 有什么样？你的有的时候是思路对的，但是你这个答案根本就不在回答这个问题。但是你需要 rephrase your answer and then you can answer this question。
那我还有一个就是我想到一个，就生活方式上那个改变嘛，就是以前在国内的时候是更注重是一些养生方面的习惯，但是到这边来以后呢，就是会去增加一些锻炼，就觉得是肌肉美也是一个挺好的一个。
对，这个可以说你如何就是说同化到澳大利亚的文化，就比方说在国内大家都在猛的吃那种瘦身产品，然后觉得女性纤细才是美，说好女不过百，
没有肌肉那
是超过100斤就绝对不美。但是澳洲呢，觉得这个 muscle curvy 才是 sexy， 就是说有曲线美的才是美。 然后的话呢，觉得瘦骨如柴，全身干巴巴，没前没后的都不美。然后这边觉得有蜜桃臀、翘臀才是美。然后在中国都是扁平臀。然后的话，这个可以说是你的一个你现在的审美观也变成了澳洲的审美观，你也觉得身上有一点肉，叫做什么？叫做说穿衣显瘦，脱衣有肉才是美。或者说觉得肤色，中国都在猛地吃美白产品，全部都是 whitening product， 觉得脸越白越美。但是澳洲人家觉得小麦肤色、健康颜色才美，然后他们还在天天的抹 tanning product， 就晒黑美黑产品。就是说你也受到了这个影响，你也觉得你现在这个肤色就挺美的，不需要变多白。
对，这个审美观是有这
个就是说你如何同化到澳洲的。其实大家如果认真想的话，例子是有很多很多的。好 ，question 9。
So have you perceived any difference between your culture and Australian culture?
There are a lot of the difference between the two cultures. For example, I think the marriage, as we mentioned before, the marriage is more almost important to most young Chinese and their families. And most people feel they
知道吗？这昨天谈过的以及大家都谈过的，你们就不要再拿它来举例子了。这个不谈婚姻，不能谈点别的吗？那你们组就先停一下，哈，想一下能不能有点别的，就完全没谈过的，有新意的。
哦，可不可以说别人夸你？
就是说 the praise, how do you take in the praise from somebody？ 夸你应该怎么对待？还是怎么着？你不会用英文？
就说
说一说。
就是比如说，就中国人，就是在中国别人夸你说啊，没有，不是。
对，这个对，这个。
然后在这边他们就
How you respond to compliment？ 在中国的话呢，如果别人说啊 ，You are so beautiful， 你就说 Where， 就说哪里。其实当然的英文肯定不是 Where 了。然后如果说 You are such a pretty girl。你就说啊 ，Yeah, you are so kind。然后你说 You are so kind, but there are a lot of girls who are prettier than me。然后你就会这样说。然后在外国的话，如果他们说说是 You are so sexy， 或者说是它的一个称呼叫做 The Ice Cold Fox， 就是形容那种性感大美女。Fox 就是狐狸 ，Ice Cold Fox。然后在这边的话呢，就是说 You take it in happily， 然后说 Thank you very much。然后的话，这边你就觉得 take it for granted， 你不是夸我美吗？我也觉得我自己挺美的，是不是？所以这个你可以说是一个文化差异。对，在中国的话，别人夸你美，心里面高兴的不得了，嘴上还说，哎呀 ，I think you know that so and so，you know so and so 就是某某人 ，that so and so is much prettier than me。然后说 the girl lives next door，I think she is a real beauty but not me。什么东西？在中国你高兴要命，还说哎不是，比我漂亮一大堆。好的，来10和11，哪个组？
我们组，我和佩佩。
来吧。
Okay, Emma. In your knowledge, what do you think the differences between the legal and the justice system from your country, China, and the Australia legal and the justice system?
I haven't been involved in any case before, but from my previous knowledge, I know China, it belongs to the civil law system. We judge a case by clause of law, but Australia belongs to common law system, which they judge a case by a source of law. And I also know that the law in Australia has more protection of women and children.
你这后节还行，你为什么说中国前节说是 China is a civil system？
我查的是那个 civil law system 是大陆法系。
那你查的不对，的话这属于外行，一查一个东西，还觉得这个就是答案了，其实不对。大陆法系不是 civil law， 大陆法系就是成文法 statutory law， 就是说就叫做成文法和判例法，然后英文法系是 case law。 civil law 指的是民事法呀，那你 criminal 怎么算？那杀了人你肯定不能 civil law 来证啊。对，你要是说offer more protection to women and children， 这个肯定是澳大利亚和中国的不同。但是这个问题你可以深究。其实说到底最明显的差别的话，大家可以看到我的这个 Word 文档吗？
可以。
最根本的问题是，就是澳大利亚或者西方民主国家是法治社会，叫 rule by law，rule of law， 其实就叫 rule of law。然后的话 the country is ruled by law，rule of law 就叫做法治这个是非常厉害的一个词。而中国的话呢，其实的话就是 rule of people， 叫人治社会。所以就是中国其实说句不好听的嘛，就是很多的法律其实是一纸空文，因为你们都知道啊，就是说比方说你爸是个什么什么高官，那你杀了人然后进去就坐3年，然后就死刑变死缓3年就出来了，这就是 rule of people rule of law。就是你看现在的话呢，就是虽然这样说可能有点反党反社会，但是这个是真实存在的，就是法律有很多的漏洞可钻，大家对法律的这个尊重没有西方对法律的这个尊重，因为中国是一个人治社会。对，
老师，你刚才讲中国属于什么法呀？是属于你说我们查错了，是那个
大陆法 statutory law。
Statutory
law。
OK。
你这个东西的话，不单是要上网去抄一段，就是说网上是怎么写的，但是你得真正深刻的理解它那个字面 ，read between the lines， 看到它后面真正是什么意思。
好的。
对 ，legal system。
Statutory。
对。然后呢，其实说中国和澳大利亚法治的差别，其实还有很多。如果的话，等我们以后再学这个法律的那个 unit， 然后就可以再具体的来看。好，那个 question 11。
Okay. As Emma, as you said, during these 5 years, have you ever experienced any tensions in mainstream society which were created by cultural differences?
Yes. I know the people here, they label Chinese or Asian background as math talents. I have an example. And when I studied accounting last year, most of the students and teachers are local. When some Asian background answers the question quickly and correctly, the others think it is quite normal. But when the Asian backgrounds can't make an answer, they think it is very strange. I still feel very tension from their face and eyes, although they didn't say out directly.
这个东西的话呢，好像这个东西不是，你知道 tension 是什么意思吗？
紧张。
tension 它是指关系的紧张，就是说你们两个造成了一种 confrontation， 造成了一种对抗，有 friction， 有摩擦，这个叫做 any tension。就是说，就我们说你和你男朋友吵架了，这是一种 tension。然后的话呢，别人看你是非常有敌意的，然后你看他呢，你也发现他的敌意，这是你们两个之中 tension 是指你们两个之中的一种紧张的关系，对峙的紧张的关系。它不是你刚才这个例子好像不是这种感觉嘛 ？create any tension， 就比方说我作为老师，我天天就是催着你交作业。然后的话，你作为一个学生，你又懒，然后的话呢，你一个作业就老写不完，这样的话就会造成我们俩之间有一种 tension， 就是关系很紧张。就我们之间 tension 其实就是 conflict 的一种表现形，就这样的话才是我们之间的一个 tension。你比方说，他们都觉得亚裔同学应该数学很好，这个问题他应该能回答出来，你回答不出来，别人就觉得你好奇怪，这个不是你跟他之间的关系的紧张吧？
不，他想表达的他不是好奇怪，他是觉得他答出来以后呢，他老师表扬，觉得答得很好，但是其他同学就不以为然。那当然了，你是亚裔学生，你数学本来就好，肯定答得比我们快啊。
这也不是你们之间的 tension 啊，那只不过是别人就是 just look down upon you， 就是没看得起你啊， 这种意思，就是怎么样 thumb their nose at you， 就对你不屑一顾，就是对你回答出来就是不屑一顾的，这不是你们之间关系的一个 tension。就比方说你是房东，他是租客，然后你想提前搬走，然后租约没到期你就想提前搬走，因为你有种种的原因，比方说你跟其他的同学在外面找到了一个房子要一起住什么，然后房东就不让你走，你就想走，或者说房东说走可以扣押金，你肯定不同意丢押金，这样就会造成你们之间的一个 tension。
哦 ，OK，
这是一种冲突。
那肯定是啊，对呀，这个是造成的 tension。好，那我们来12、13找同学来，最后一组。
我跟那个同学，杨科同学的。
你俩同学还在吗？
不知道杨科还没有在。
我在12、13吗？
好，那你们来说吧。
Hi, Peggy. Next we will talk about the我们还没讨论是12、13。
没事，你问吧，我答就行。
Coordination. So the next question, if you have ever encountered culture produces tensions and discrimination in any form of shape since arriving in Australia, can you tell me the story?
Yeah, sure. I would like to believe like at least 90% of the time people are inherently good. So most of my experience in Australia has been pretty positive up to this point. Most of the Australians that I have encountered has been pretty welcoming, inclusive, and friendly. And I did, however, encounter or experience some forms of cultural prejudice or discriminations, and most of those times is not upfront or outrageous, racist attack or some kind of verbal attacks or physical attacks. Usually, it comes in the form of microaggressions. Like you can sense it. They won't tell you to your face, but you can sense it when you have interaction with them. For example, when I was in uni, I was hanging out with these two friends of mine. They're my uni mates. We did most of our assignments and group work together. One of the guys in the group, I would say he's slightly racist. So sometimes he will make like remarks, things like, "Oh, hey, Matt, look at that." Like, so when he sees that another Asian man is working in uni or like another Asian person working somewhere where we're in, they're like, "Hey, Matt, is that your dad or was that your uncle?" Like, saying it in like a joking manners, and he thought that was funny, but I didn't take it that way. So most of the time, I just didn't react to it, or I just I just gave him that look that like, dude, that's not cool. I didn't like it. I probably could have handled it in a better way, but like maybe it's like sometimes I was hoping that I was my reaction is fast enough that I can give a comeback that shut him up, but it didn't happen. But things like that, that's something that I encountered. So most of the times microaggressions and that form of discrimination, or you can say stereotypes. So yeah, that's my personal stories for these questions. But I still like to believe that.
That's your personal stories for these questions. 你到底讲了几个 story？ 还让他问了几个问题呀
？One question and I get one story.
但是你说的是 that's my personal stories for those questions. This is exactly what you said. I can play it back for you if you don't.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I might have made mistakes when it comes to plural or singular. Yeah.
来 question 13.
That's really a special experience. So let's move to the last question. So if you can start over, what changes you would like to make about your experience in Australia?
I think the only thing that I would like to change about my experience in Australia would be, again, this is really personal as well. Something to do not so much about my life experience in Australia, it's more to do with myself, the way that I handle my friendships or my relationship with my family, my friends. I used to be pretty laid back and not spending enough time to make the effort to actually connect with people that that's important to me. So in the first few years when I was in Australia, so like for example, I wouldn't call my mom for like when I first moved to Australia. I wouldn't call my mom. Like I would like spend time by myself and wouldn't make an effort to call my parents or my family for like months. So that way that I feel like I lost connection to them, like in over those years. So if anything I could change, I would say I would become more conscious about my in terms of my my behaviors, like, or like my communication skills when it comes to maintaining relationship and connection with my friends and family back home.
这个讲得不错 ，more conscious about maintaining the family bond。好的，然后的话呢，大家可以休息15分钟，来到11点40，好吧？
Okay.